they don't grow up. Like I always say, hey, I'm never going to grow up. And when I talk to most adults that I hang out with, you might feel or say that, you're like you're still 20, right? Well, I got stuck at 12. So when you say 7-year-old self, man, I used to run wild when I was 7. So I'll tell my 7-year-old self what I know now that I should have told myself back then. And it kind of lines up with what you guys have both been talking about so far. Is just Victoria, when you were talking about yourself and your self image and all that stuff. And I mean, you probably did have to get to a point where you do appreciate exactly who you are today, and there probably was a time when they started to get in your head and people were picking on you and teasing you and doing all that stuff. And I'm kind of the same way. Like I wake up every day and my wife will tell me I could lose some weight. She's a personal trainer. I've got this permanent little, I mean, I don't have a blubbery belly, but I've got the dad belly. And it is solid as a rock, and it will take some work to ever get rid of it if I can get rid of it, right? And for me, there's a trade-off behind how much work I want to do to make that be a six pack, just a six pack, or be where I am, because I love where I am too. I mean, I did go buy circus mirrors, so it makes me look really good every morning. I have those little wavy mirrors all over the place, so I look great, man. Now that's really like what's in my head. But what I really want to bring in here today in my what do you want to call it? My screamed out voice from a football game yesterday in Minneapolis, or Sunday, I mean, in Minneapolis. Yesterday was the drive home. That's why I didn't make it on the call. I would make sure that I knew about the book How to Win Friends and Influence People. I would make sure that I knew about the book and the principles that Cialdini shares in the book Influence, because it's the human side of the world that you guys have been talking about today. How to Win Friends and Influence People is about putting yourself in their shoes. And if we could take everybody through, when you were a kid, Victoria, putting if they would have put themselves in your shoes and what that felt like to hear anything that they might have said or picked on you about. Um, in Win Friends and Influence People, it's about boosting people's egos, not running with our own ego and being better than everybody else. It's about boosting other people's egos. It's about being interested in them, like really like listen to people. And I can tell you through this conversation right here over and over and over, through coaching, training, through being around very productive people, to you know being a speaker and a trainer across the country, there was something that happened about 15, 20 years ago where I just stopped for a second and I look at people when they're talking. And like I could speak on a stage in front of 20,000 people at a real estate event, and there's 100 people coming up to the stage afterwards with the message that you share, that they're going to come up and want to introduce themselves, or you hit something hard with them and they have questions. And I even though there's 100 people there and they've got the next people setting up for the speaker, it was about like looking at them and listening to what they had to say, not just trying to shake their hand and just nod your head and move on to the next person and not hear anything that was said. So it's about being very interested and staying curious. So I have moved to a world where I'm curious about everything. I mean, my wife laughs at me because when we're watching some TV late at night going to bed, I'll make some comment about a commercial and I'll be like, I wonder why they did that, or that commercial was amazing. She's like, you don't even ask questions about the show. You're like watching the commercials. And it's just interesting to understand why people do things the way they do, or what their message is, or what they're attracting people of. And I mean, there's a lot more in How to Win Friends and Influence People. And I just remember even in the book Influence by Cialdini, which I'll throw it in the chat here in a minute, but his 7 principles of influence. And I like the one today. What we're kind of talking about is his number 3, I think, is social proof, or number 4, one of those. And it's do are you doing what you would expect everyone to see? Like how do you do things when nobody's looking? Because today everybody's looking and everything's getting caught on camera. And it's actually gotten to the point that if you haven't lived this, then you're going to get caught doing something stupid. I remember saying something about, God, what was it? Oh, there was a recent thing where a girl went for a little bike ride in the woods and she disappeared. And this guy grabbed her and put a ransom note at her house on the door, like he knew where she lived. Why would you do that? That doesn't even what's even makes remotely sense that you would go, huh, there's another human being, somebody's girl. I'm going to go and grab it and see if I can get a ransom note and get some money. It's like, God, go get a job or something and make money. I just don't get it. So it's like, what do you do when nobody else is looking? Right. And so that's probably what I would tell myself, just to keep coming back to what my core thing is bringing the human element back to life, especially as we get more and more with AI, the speed of the world, everything. It's like we still have this beating heart and like all this blood vessels running through our brain, and there's this brain doing stuff up there that we haven't even tapped. We have not even tapped into what it can do. And just remembering that we're human in all of it. So that's probably what I would tell myself.
I love it. I love it. You brought something to my attention when you said, and I've been really working at being very cognizant of this, is looking at people. And we live in America, and our culture is that you show respect by looking at people and making that eye contact. And I love that you brought that up, and we could all do that a little bit. And I am trying, when I go to like the grocery or wherever I happen to go, is to actually look up at the person that's serving me and say, thank you, Jill, or thank you, Stephen, and actually call them by their name, because I had a habit of, I'm usually rushing in and out because I do not like going to the grocery. I don't like shopping in general. So I tend to run in and out and be really not conscious of there's a person on the other end of that register that, that maybe they haven't had a lot of smiles that day. And I think things like that are important. And so I love the fact that after you've done a speech that you actually look at the person speaking to you instead of just doing that head nod. And then I don't know if this is in Cialdini's book or not, but I heard along the way, and I haven't looked it up because the minute I did, you'll stop talking. I would have had to get back on stage. But it said to be interesting, become interested. I don't know if someone's heard that or where that came from, but I did hear that, and I truly believe that. Become interested in other people, and that will make you much more interesting. And I love that you always touch on the fact that we are humans. AI is great. AI is okay. You can say great, but there is AI out there. But at the end of the day, we all have heartbeats. We all have blood flowing through our veins. So I love that you keep it human. Keep it human. That's right, Jason. Let's go around the world. Let's do that trip, dude. Let's go. Anyway. Planet Brad. Planet Brad. Oh, Planet Brad. Okay, there you go. Oh, I love it. Brad, when you say I'm still a kid, I never grew up. I'm all for that because I love toys, bigger toys. Because what y'all may or may not know about me is I love electronics. Like I could spend all day in an electronics store.